Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat malam, salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sambil menunggu pembicara dan juga Direktur Sekolah Kajian Strategik dan Global Studi Universitas Indonesia, kami dari pihak panitia akan memulai terlebih dahulu acara atau kegiatan webinar dan launching buku pada malam hari ini. Sekali lagi saya ucapkan selamat malam, salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Yang saya hormati, The Honorable Bapak Athor Subroto, SM, MM, M.Sc, Ph.D, Director of School of Strategic and Global Studies, Universitas Indonesia. Yang saya hormati juga, The Honorable Bapak Associate Professor Machmudi, Ph.D, Head of Middle East and Islamic Studies Program, School of Strategic and Global Studies, Universitas Indonesia. Kegiatan pada malam hari ini akan berlangsung bersama beberapa pembicara yang luar biasa. The Honorable Speakers Associate Professor Ahmed Sarif, Associate Dean College of Humanities and Social Science, Zayed University Dubai, Uni Arab Emirates, yang akan segera bergabung. Also, the Honorable Associate Professor Khairudin Aljunaid from Faculty of Art and Social Science, National University of Singapore, yang juga akan segera bergabung. Sekali lagi saya ucapkan selamat malam, dear ladies and gentlemen. All participants of book launch and international webinar. Alhamdulillah, praise to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, because thanks to His grace, we can still gather to gain knowledge from these extraordinary speakers. This event is an international webinar, as well as a book launching of the head of the Middle East and Islamic Studies Program, School of Strategic and Global Studies, Universitas Indonesia, Bapak Machmudi, Ph.D. The book itself, entitled Timur Tengah dalam Sorotan, Dinamika Timur Tengah dalam Perspektif Indonesia. And the theme of our international webinar tonight is Middle East in Focus, Peace, Prosperity, and Democracy in Muslim World. This event is also a joint collaboration with the Alumni Association of Middle East and Islamic Studies Program of Universitas Indonesia, and also with a joint collaboration with InMind Institute. Before we open this event, let me introduce myself. I am Hibatullah, as the master of the ceremony this evening, and also a student of Middle East and Islamic Studies Program, School of Strategic and Global Studies, Universitas Indonesia. Also, I want to convey the rules during this event. First, all participants in this activity are advised to use a headset. Second, host will turn off participant speakers until host or moderator give permission to ask questions during the question and answer session. Third, question and answer session can be done through chat Zoom meetings, YouTube comments, or direct questions that will be selected by the committee. Fourth, the committee will share the list of attendees for this activity through the Zoom meeting chat 30 minutes before the webinar is over. The materials and e-certificates will be emailed to participants after the webinar is over. Entering the next agenda. singing Indonesia National Anthem, Indonesia Raya. The next agenda is profile display of Middle East and Islamic Studies, School of Strategic and Global Studies, Universitas Indonesia.
Kajian Wilayah Timur Tengah dan Islam (SKSG) Universitas Indonesia memberikan kesempatan kepada para mahasiswa untuk mendalami khazanah peradaban dan dinamikanya di kawasan Timur Tengah dan dunia Islam dalam perspektif strategik dan global. Tantangan dan peluang di kawasan ini dipelajari secara komprehensif dengan pendekatan multidisiplin, interdisiplin maupun transdisiplin dari aspek politik dan hubungan internasional, sosial ekonomi maupun budaya. Oleh karena itu, untuk berkontribusi di dalam memberikan solusi alternatif atas isu-isu strategik dan global di kawasan ini, kami hadir dengan berbagai peminatan unggulan, antara lain politik dan hubungan internasional di Timur Tengah, ekonomi dan keuangan syariah, industri halal, kajian Islam, dan psikologi Islam. Mari menjadi bagian dari Prodi Kajian Wilayah Timur Tengah dan Islam SKSG Universitas Indonesia.
Kurikulum KTTI memberikan pijakan teoritis yang sangat diperlukan untuk memahami perkembangan terkini di Timur Tengah. Selain itu, penjelasan-penjelasan teori ini disampaikan oleh dosen-dosen yang sangat mumpuni. Kedua, KTTI selalu mengupdate isu-isu terkini di Timur Tengah melalui seminar-seminar yang menghadirkan para pakar dari luar Universitas Indonesia. KTTI juga memberikan fasilitas yang menunjang bagi kegiatan mahasiswa, kegiatan berupa akademis maupun non-akademis. Penunjang untuk kegiatan akademis seperti penyediaan jurnal-jurnal, jurnal nasional maupun jurnal internasional, dan juga berupa bahan bacaan seperti koran yang dapat diakses melalui hotspot di seluruh lingkungan SKSG. Lokasi kampus KTTI juga strategis, yaitu di Salem di Jakarta Pusat, Hal ini sangat cocok, sangat membantu bagi mahasiswa yang ingin kuliah sambil bekerja.
KTT ini sangat berperan penting dalam pengembangan ekonomi syariah Indonesia. Seperti kita ketahui, Indonesia sudah mempunyai visi menjadi pusat keuangan syariah global, dan salah satunya pengembangan tidak hanya perbankan dan keuangan syariah, tapi juga industri halal, di mana KTTI sudah lama mencetak generasi-generasi dan pakar-pakar ekonomi keuangan syariah Indonesia yang sekarang sudah banyak berkiprah di lembaga internasional, di pemerintahan, dan juga di dunia industri.
Kami sangat merasakan materi-materi selama kami menjalani atau mengikuti pendidikan di KTTI berkaitan erat sekali dengan apa yang kita hadapi saat ini. Pertama, kawasan Timur Tengah ini memiliki arti penting bagi pengembangan peradaban di dunia, khususnya di Indonesia. Itu kami berharap kajian-kajian PSKTTI senantiasa memperhatikan perkembangan yang terjadi di kawasan Timur Tengah yang juga tidak terlepas dari kawasan dunia lainnya.
Saya memilih kajian wilayah Timur Tengah dan Islam, Sekolah Kajian Strategi Global Universitas Indonesia, karena di sini memiliki prodi yang terakreditasi A di BAN PT. Saya juga senang memilih kuliah di kampus terbaik di Indonesia, Universitas Indonesia, karena sangat mendukung kegiatan suasana belajar saya. Di sini memiliki dosen-dosen yang memiliki latar keilmuan yang tinggi, kemudian fasilitas yang baik, semua mendukung kegiatan saya belajar. Saya yakin Indonesia sebagai negara muslim terbesar di dunia dan Indonesia memiliki hubungan yang baik dengan kawasan Timur Tengah. Alumni-alumni KTTI dibutuhkan di masa mendatang. Dengan memilih KTTI, saya akan berkarir di jalan yang diridhoi oleh Allah.
Kami yakin kehadiran program studi kajian wilayah Timur Tengah dan Islam dapat menjawab tantangan nasional dan global.
In remarks by Director of School of Strategic and Global Studies, Universitas Indonesia, the Honorable Bapak Athor Subroto, S.A., M.M., M.Sc, Ph.D. To Honorable Bapak Athor Subroto, time and place is yours.
Oke, thank you Mas Farhan Batullah atas waktunya. Good evening everybody, honorable guests, especially Profesor Khairudin Aljunaid, Faculty of Art and Social Science, and US, Singapore. Prof. Ahmed Ali Salem, Associate Dean, College of Humanities and Social Science, Zayed University, UAE. Machmudi, Ph.D., Head of Middle East and Islamic Studies Program, SSGS, Universitas Indonesia. We are very proud of you as one of the productive and talented young scientists from Universitas Indonesia, I think. And of course, all participants who are attended this international webinar and book launching through online platform like Zoom or YouTube. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening for Indonesian time, and also good afternoon for you, maybe in the Middle East time. First of all, thanks to Allah, and let's say Alhamdulillah, since we are still able to meet here in the virtual room, although the situation out there is still very hard because of the pandemic COVID-19. I am, on behalf of the School of Strategic and Global Study, Universitas Indonesia, very pleased and honored to have you all here for this event. This webinar and book launch with the theme of Middle East in Focus, Peace, Prosperity, and Democracy in Muslim World. I think will give all the participants kind of unique perspective, at least on how to see Middle East, on its way to achieve peace, prosperity, and democracy as one bundle. And for sure, based on the current situation, as we understood that it is now more dynamics there, and also still have many complications. However, those dynamics with all its complexity will make the discussion in this webinar and launching more intriguing and also worth to follow till the end. Ladies and gentlemen, as we may have been experiencing the currently critical time today, as the pandemic still going on, we need to support each other by mutual collaboration, knowledge sharing, help each other in order to minimize its impact to our economy, social life, and health, and many other aspects. This webinar, I think, also pursuant of this objective. Once more, I hope we are all enjoy and take as much as possible benefit from this current webinar and book launching. And without any ado, due to the limited time, I do not want to make any delay further to start this webinar and book launch. I officially open this webinar and book launching. Thank you very much and enjoy. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Bapak Athor. The next event is a photo session. So before we start this event, please to open your camera to take the photo session. The photo session will be guided by the host, Mas Pras. Please, could you help me to take the photo of all the participants and speakers, and also our director, Pak Athor Subroto. Thank you. Oke, 1, 2, 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you very much, Mas Pras. For your information, Pak Athor, Pak Yon, Professor Ahmed Salem, this event is currently being attended by more than 400 participants from various universities, both from within the country and abroad, such as Universitas Gadjah Mada, Universitas Islam Negeri from all of province, Universitas Nasional, Universitas Al-Azhar Indonesia, and also from King Fahd University. So we are very grateful for the great interest of all the participants, all the participants. Okay, we will enter the main event, but before we enter the main event, allow us to give a little review about the book of Pak Yon Machmudi, Timur Tengah dalam Sorotan, Dinamika Timur Tengah dalam Perspektif Indonesia, which will be reviewed by a representative from a student of Middle East and Islamic Studies, School of Strategic and Global Studies, Universitas Indonesia. Our dearest brother, Samir and Zaki Ashura, place and time is yours.
Thank you for the Master of Ceremony for giving the time. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to deliver a brief review of the book. The Middle East is a region consisting of dozens of countries with various social, cultural, historical, and political uniqueness. So it is pretty challenging to figure out the dynamics of the region in a short time. On the other hand, the Middle East has special relations with Western countries, either in loyalty or antipathy. Given that the Middle East has always been an interesting issue from time to time it is not an exaggeration if the author named the book Timur Tengah dalam Sorotan, or the Middle East in Focus. The author aims to write the book to help Indonesian readers better understand the complexity of problems in the Middle East. The author discusses the Middle East complexity comprehensively, emphasizing the Indonesian perspective in analyzing every Middle East issue. By reading this book, the author wishes that all readers could put together various puzzles about Middle East issues ranging from history, conflict, Arab Spring, and its future. Furthermore, the author discusses Indonesia's important role in peace solution in the region, especially in the Palestinian and Israeli conflict. Indonesia's position on this issue is very clear, denying all forms of colonialism on Earth. So, to what extent is Indonesia able to play its role and be recognized for its efforts in peace solution in the Middle East? And would Indonesia in the future become an essential partner for countries in the Middle East? Find the answer in this book. Thank you very much.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. أسعد الله مساءكم بكل خير. يسرني أن ألقي لكم ملخص كتاب باللغة العربية الذي كتب رئيس قسم الدراسات الشرق الأوسط جامعة إندونيسيا أستاذ دكتور يون محمودي. يناقش هذا الكتاب حول ديناميكيات الشرق الأوسط، بما أن ليس من السهل لفهم ديناميكات الشرق الأوسط في وقت سريع. علاوة على ذلك فإن منطقة الشرق الأوسط هي منطقة تتكون من عدة دول بتفريدها الاجتماعي والثقافي والتاريخي والسياسي. الشرق الأوسط له علاقة خاصة مع الدول الغربية، سواء كانت هذه العلاقات مخلصة أم غليظة، بالنظر إلى أن الشرق الأوسط كان دائما له قضية مثيرة للاهتمام من وقت لآخر. فلذلك فليس من المبالغة وصف هذا الكتاب بعنوان Middle East in Focus. هذا الكتاب هو محاولة المؤلف لتسهيل فهم القراء الإندونيسيين للمشاكل المعقدة في الشرق الأوسط، ثم تتم مناقشة الصورة المعقدة للشرق الأوسط بشكل شامل مع التركيز على المنظور الإندونيسي في النظر إلى كل قضية في الشرق الأوسط. من خلال قراءة هذا الكتاب من المأمول أن يتمكن القراء من تجميع العديد من الألغاز حول قضايا الشرق الأوسط، بدءا من التاريخ والصراع Arab Spring ومستقبله. ويناقش أيضا هذا الكتاب إلى أي مدى تستطيع إندونيسيا أن تلعب دورها وأن يتم الاعتراف بدورها السلام في الشرق الأوسط، وهل ستصبح إندونيسيا في المستقبل شريكا مهما لدول الشرق الأوسط. شكرا على حسن اهتمامكم، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Samir and Zaki Ashura. So the next agenda is the main event this evening, a presentation session from all the speakers, which will be guided by our moderator, Ms. Melia Irawan, as whom M.Sc. Well, allow me to introduce your remarkable career and experience to all participants this evening, Ms. Melia. Ms. Melia is a researcher of In-Mind Institute. She was also a recipient of Nostra Aetate Fellowship in Interfaith Dialogue at the year 2020 in Vatican, Italy. She was also an alumni of Middle East and Islamic Studies, School of Strategic and Global Studies, Universitas Indonesia. She was also a former expert staff of the House of Representatives, Republic of Indonesia. And she has a lot of experience to be a moderator or to be a master of ceremony in various occasions. So Ms. Emilia Irawan, time is yours. Thank you very much.
Hello, thank you very much to MC, Mr. Farhan Hibatullah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good evening, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen from Indonesia, welcome to our international webinar entitled "Is in Focus, is Prosperity and Democracy in Muslim World." Please give a round of applause to the committee, Middle East and Islamic Program, School of Strategic Global Studies, University of Indonesia, who has hosted this important webinar. I would like to thank you very much for inviting me as moderator for more than an hour to accompany you all and accompany expert speakers today to discuss about the conflict and the future of Middle East, especially about the Muslim world. I'm really highly appreciate to all participants who come from various institutions and various provinces in Indonesia, from Sabang to Merauke, and also from overseas or abroad, from Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Amsterdam, etc. That's very fantastic for me because more than 400 who have registered for this webinar. That's not including from YouTube channel. And I want to say hello to YouTube channel. Thank you very much for coming to listen and maybe discuss about the Middle East area studies. Well, this is because the topic presentations is very interesting. Middle East is sexist issues, not only for Indonesia, but also for global community. Or maybe it's because there are 3 speakers who expert in this area. So we are so exciting for this webinar. So we would like to have a cluster to 3 speaker. So I want to say hello to first speaker, Pak Ion Machmudi. Hello, Pak Ion. Assalamualaikum, Pak Ion Machmudi, Ph.D.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, May.
Okay, Pak Ion?
Yeah.
Pak Ion, he is head of Middle East and Islamic Studies Program, University of Indonesia. And he is the author of this book. Thank you, Pak Ion, for this book. This is very good. Give me insight to see how the Middle East progress for Indonesian perspective, relation between Indonesia and Middle East countries. Pak Ion, he's got a doctorate from NU, Australian National University, Canberra in 2007, with a focus in Islamic politics in Southeast and Middle East. And also, Pak Ion, he is a speaker in national and international level. Wow, so amazing, Pak Ion.
Thank you, May.
Executive Director in Mind Institute. Pak Ion. Pak Ion, hello, Pak Ion.
Yeah, hello, yeah.
How I ask you again, Pak Ion, because I'm so excited right now. How are you today, Pak Ion?
Good, alhamdulillah.
Good, alhamdulillah.
Yep, everybody.
Yeah. Pak Ion, when I ask you one word, this is like a games. Before we continue for discussion, main discussion is very serious. So I want to give you one funny games, okay? Pak Ion, when I mention one word, so I want to listen your expressions. Just answer one word again, okay, Pak Ion? Like this. Bali. And what in your mind? Oh, beautiful. Maybe like this. Okay, Pak Yon. Okay, are you ready, Pak Yon?
Beautiful.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, Pak Yon. This question for you. Nasi kebuli.
Delicious.
Give a round of applause to Pak Yon. Thank you very much, Pak Yon. Nasi kebuli delicious or yummy, ya, Pak Yon. Do you like nasi kebuli, Pak Yon?
Biryani rice, yeah.
Biryani rice.
Yeah, I like the Middle East food.
Middle East, okay.
Delicious.
That's a kind of the culture, ya, Pak Yon. We should know about the culture, not only conflicts. Okay, thank you, Pak Yon.
Yeah, right. We enjoy.
We move to second speaker. Second speaker is far from Dubai. Assalamualaikum, Dr. Ahmed Ali Salem. Hello, Dr. Ahmed.
Yes, I am unmuted myself. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Dr. Ahmed, كيف حالكم؟ دكتور؟
بخير والحمد لله، وكيف حالك أنت؟
أنا خير الحمد لله. شكرا كثيرا لحضوركم في ندوة الدولية اليوم.
هذا شرف لي.
أيوة. فرق بين إندونيسيا ودبي 3 ساعات.
نعم.
أليس
3
كذلك؟
ساعات. نعم.
Masya Allah, Masya Allah. Thank you very much, Doctor. We are really appreciate and happy you come here to participate in these precious moments. I think this can make us mind-blowing to understand about Middle East. And when I see your CV is very much achievement. Wow. Dr. Ahmed Ali, he is Associate Dean, College of Humanities and Social Science, Zayed University, Uni Emirat Arab. He is Senior Research Associate, Department of Political and International Studies, Rhodes University, South Africa. And wow, if I mention one by one, I think tomorrow we can finish this.
Thank you. This is very kind from you.
You paper 12, right? But we really appreciate you are expert, and you focus on the Middle East, especially about the Islamic movement. Okay, thank you very much, Dr.
It's an honor for me to participate in this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. But we use English, right? In this,
yes.
No Arabic language. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Well, we continue to third speaker. I think the speaker is Associate Professor Dr. Ahmed Associate Professor Dr. Khairudin Aljunaid. He told to me he late, but I don't know right now. Dr. Khairudin, are you here? Okay, I think he come late because he has very full activities.
I'm here now. I'm online.
Wow, thank you very much,
Yes.
Dr. Khairudin. Thank you very much. You are from Singapore, right?
Yes.
We are similar roots. We are similar root. Malaysia, like Malaysia, Melayu.
Yeah.
Can you speak in Melayu? Apa kabar?
Ya, bolehlah sikit-sikit.
Sikit-sikit. Apa kabar?
Baik, alhamdulillah.
Apa kabar? Alhamdulillah. And I would like to read your CV. Dr. Khairudin Aljunaid from Ph.D. SOAS London. He is an associate professor at the National University of Singapore and senior fellow previously Malaysia Chair of Islam in South Asia at the Al-Walid Center for Muslim Christian Understanding. Wow, Georgetown University. Wow, and he is also write a book. There is something awesome that you wrote Hamka and Islam. Yeah, Doctor.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, and maybe in your presentation you want to tell about the Hamka and Islam, right?
Inshallah, I will share a little bit about Hamka.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh, there is Mehmet. Oh, Ibnu Kalum. There is a guest from Turkey. Thank you very much for coming. Well, we give a round of applause to the speaker who already come this beautiful night. I think I need to continue to our main questions from not all participants who background from Middle East area. So I want to give some brief to understand about the Middle East. 19th century, the beginning of European countries controlling the Middle East. Through the scientific agreements, the Middle East was divided on the basis of British and French interests. And what's about America? America came to the Middle East in the early 20th century. After the Cold War, America emerged as the only superpower in the world. U.S. has become an important player in the global politics. America used geographic strategy to control the Middle East. Since then, the Middle East conflict over control of natural resources, followed by the issues of Islamic revival. Welcome to our international webinar, Middle East in Focus, Peace, Prosperity, and Democracy in Muslim World. Give a round of applause for us. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, no need to wait a long time. I would like to invite the first speaker to present his presentation. Pak Yon Machmudi wants to talk about the trend in the Middle East from Indonesia perspective. But before that, ladies and gentlemen, I have a question in this webinar for all participants. First, please mute during the speaker presentations. We only allow unmute for participants who are selected in the discussion sessions. Second, question will be taken from Zoom meeting and YouTube channel with the composition determined by the committee. And third, participants can ask questions in one of 3 languages, English, Arabic, or Indonesian. And fourth, the questions are addressed to whom? Speaker 1, 2, or 3. Please mention your name and institutions, and please talk directly and to the point. And fifth, enjoy discussions. And for Pak Yon, please welcome Pak Yon. Time is yours, Pak Yon Machmudi.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, May. How about
Pak Yon, we give 10 minutes.
Yes.
The time skipper can listen in the screen. Thank you, Pak Yon.
Yeah, okay. Is it clear, my voice, May?
Yes.
Okay, good. Right. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. It's honorable Bapak Athor Subroto, Ph.D., the Director of School of Strategic and Global Studies, Universitas Indonesia, the honorable participant, and also in particular the honorable speaker. We have Associate Professor Dr. Ahmed Salem. Thank you very much for your attending to give very important thanks to our Khairudin Aljunaid. Thank you very much. With your very busy activity, then you can join our webinar today. I hope that I do not take too much time, so we can focus on the next presentation by our colleague, Dr. Ahmed Salem and Dr. Khairudin Aljunaid. So I just want to give kind of introduction to this webinar and also introduce the the books that I already wrote in Indonesia, actually, but the aim of this book is to give the reader in Indonesia to understand the dynamic of Middle East in Indonesia perspective, because it is very important to see, to have the position regarding the issue of that happened in Middle East and the Muslim world, because all that happened abroad in Middle East and Muslim world actually also influence the dynamic of Indonesia in general. So I think we have to know our position in order to see the objective and also the comprehensive issues that happen in Middle East. Let me start my presentation on the Middle East trend and their influence on Indonesia. I hope the committee can share the PowerPoint, because here I cannot share my PowerPoint. So please to share the PowerPoint presentation. The Middle East trend and influences on Indonesia. So we can go to the next paper, please. Talking about the Middle East, we often see about the various conflicts in Middle East, but here we want to have another perspective actually about how the future of the peace, the prosperity, and also democracy in the Middle East and Muslim world, because it is, I think, very important progress that we want to see in the future. But let's see also give a brief understanding about the various conflicts in the Middle East. For instance, we have the internal conflict, the long-lasting conflict between the Palestine and Israel. So we also have current Yemen conflicts, Libya, Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, Lebanon. Those conflicts also influence the dynamic of Indonesia. So all the conflict also talk here in Indonesia. Sometimes there are kind of divided in terms of responding the issue. So what happened in Middle East sometimes also just imported to Indonesia, and we see that all the conflict mostly also regarding the issue of the resources, control struggle, not merely related to the ideology, but often those things are viewed by Indonesian in terms of the ideology conflict. So it is also influenced Indonesia. The regional conflict, Saudi versus Iran, also influenced the Indonesia, divided the Muslim in Indonesia in terms of pro and cons, Shiite and Sunni association. But in contrast to those conflict influence to Indonesia, we also have to think how Indonesia also give influence to the dynamic of the Middle East. So the role of Indonesia, I think, important to see not only become the victim of all the conflict and then influence Indonesia, but also we have to see how the role of Indonesia in contributing, keeping or give, a kind of the future alternative solution to what happened in Middle East and Muslim world. So the next file, please. The conflict in the countries, usually those are, we can see, rich in natural resources. Those are very rich in natural resources, And we can see also socially fragmented polarization between the ideology, ethnicity, and other things. So there is no kind of unifying factor to make the socially cohesive. And the third also, we have the characteristic of those in conflict country sometimes, have a high dependent on foreign hegemony. So if we see about the Cold War between the United States and Soviet, and right now the Russia, those power actually divided Middle East and the Muslim world into big conflict. Okay, the next please. Then there's also another a trend that we have to see. Some country return to the authoritarian regimes. So if they are not, slip in the conflicts, some kind of the authoritarian regime, military-based regime, such as we do have the development in Egypt right now, ruled by the military, Sudan, Algeria, and also other country in the Middle East show this kind of trend. And another trend, I think we can see countries with the monarchy system, mostly the rich country. We do have the Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, the beautiful country that Dr. Salem come from, I think, United Arab. Then Kuwait, Oman, Bahrain, and Qatar. Those are most, I think, stable country, rich country, but also have varied, degree of little bit issue regarding about the peace, prosperity, and also the democracy debt. And I want you to see about how we see the general trend of the Middle East and Muslim world in terms of happiness index indicator. So we can see the indicator, for instance, about the level of the income. Yeah, if we see those Gulf countries, for sure have the very high income. And also regarding about freedom, how free the citizen to determine their own issues. So there is kind, I think, variety degree among those countries. And also how big the trust of the people to the government. So it become the issue that we can see how the happiness index can see. More than how healthy the life expectancy. So usually the prosperous country, stable country, probably peace country, have the long life expectancy comparing to those countries who fall in the conflicts. Yeah. And how is the social support from the family and friends? Yeah. The social involvement of the people around the people, I think, also very important to see how happy the people in the region. And the generosity, we see that all the Middle East, Muslim countries have the high generosity, including Indonesia, I think, become the most generous Muslim people in the world. But if we see the next, please, the reality, the top happiness index 2021 is that until number 10 dominated by the European country. We have Finland, Denmark, Switzerland, Iceland, Norway, till the Austria and Luxembourg. So the score about 7.8. Yeah. But of course, we can see little bit progress in the Middle East and a Muslim country. If we see the next slide. Number 14, we see the Israel. It is also very little bit, interesting to see that sometimes Israel considered is the most dangerous, meaning that any threat around the in terms of the security. But here he put 14 rank Israel. Then United States in number 18. Then number 19, we have the Czech Republic. This is also mostly dominated by Muslim population, the Czech Republic. And 20, then 21, finally we have the United Arab Emirates. So number 21 in this, I think also the good score in terms of the happiness rank. So we can see actually the progress kind of the peace, prosperity, development of the freedom probably increase. So number 21. I think above France, friend number 23. So Saudi Arabia number 27, but the happiness score is still high, 6. Then we have the Spain, Italy, and other 28, 30, and other. But we see that even the Singapore number 31. But this is also a little bit make us happy that Czech Republic, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia is still in the good position. Then the next slide, we have here Uzbekistan, the Muslim countries, 38th rank, Bahrain number 40, Kuwait 48, Kazakhstan, Pakistan, Bosnia, Tajikistan defeated the Russia. The Russia only number 73. So I think the most aggressive superpower in general do not, have good position. For instance, the 10 top high rank of the happiness is not come from the superpower. And even the Russia number 73, the point is score a 5.5. Then we have Kyrgyzstan, Libya, even though they are in the conflict, but still much better than Malaysia and Indonesia. 82, we have Malaysia score 5.3 and Indonesia number 84 score 5.2. So this is also, I think, still in good position because the point 5.2 above is above average. But then we also have another trend also that some country even below 5. We still have Azerbaijan still 5.1, then Turkey 93, then followed by the China. Even the China also, I think, not in good position, but still above the average. But then we have the lowest country with in terms of the happiness rank, we have the Egypt, 138. We have the Rwanda, Zimbabwe, Sudan, and it's very iron the country most rich in natural resources, but in terms of the happiness rank is in the lowest level. Then because of probably less peace, less prosperity, and less democratic. So this is also interesting, we can see. Then the new development, we have to see the progress in the Middle East and the Muslim world. It is, I think, give a promising in terms of my opinion. First, normalization between Saudi and Qatar is good. Before there is kind of normalization, between some Gulf country with the Israel. So we quote unquote, it is good for the Muslim country or not, probably need to be addressed. Opening peace talk between Palestine and Israel, I think also during the new presidency of the United America, US, the Biden give signal, to open the Palestinian peace process. Saudi and Turkey agreement, I think the current development also important to see. Indonesia peace role in Afghanistan accepted by two-party conflicting country, Taliban and the ruling government. Iran-US negotiation, I think also a good progress we can see. And I forget to list, I think another important new development is the visit of the Pope Francis of Vatican to Iraq. Also, I think a signal about what we can see next in the Middle East and Muslim world. Whether we can see more peaceful, prosperity and democratic situation there or in contrast, but we hope that peace, prosperity, and democracy will come in this moment. So I think in order to achieve peace, prosperity, and democracy, the ability to manage the resources is very important. Strengthening dialogue is also very important, to have the more strong, cohesive social in the social affiliation or social solidarity within the country, to have the power sharing, reducing the foreign dependence, reducing the military intervention, I think, for very, very important. So I think that's all as my introduction. Then we have our our speaker, Dr. Ahmed Salem, will focus on probably on other aspect of the Middle East, Egypt or other area to see what's happening and how the future of the peace, prosperity and democracy there. And then yes, okay, I think that's all. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Fayon, for your insight. This is like mindfulness for us to know. We can see that I'm so surprising as Middle East Middle East alumni to see that the progress of Middle East countries like Pope Francis came to visit to Iraq, that the signal to peace. Hopefully that the peace in Iraq, and also modernizations in Saudi Arabia, that's also the sign of the Middle East. I think that I have questions, but I give to next speaker first, because this is important to continue for the second speaker. I would like to invite Dr. Ahmed Ali. Please, Dr. Ahmed Ali. Hello, doctor. Dr. Ahmed.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Dr. Ahmed, you
yes, great.
Yes, you want to talk about promoting or resisting change in Egypt. The United States in Egypt in transition post Arab Spring. If we know that Arab Spring, that's look like hope for Middle East, for Islamic movement. But how you see it, and please, Dr. Ahmed, your time for you.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Milea, and I would like to thank the School of Strategic and Global Studies and the Department of Middle Eastern and Islamic Studies for inviting me to this webinar. It's an honor for me to participate in this webinar and to address this excellent group of people. I would like also to congratulate Dr. Machmudi for publishing this interesting book. And I think the three aspects addressed are very interrelated. Peace, prosperity, and democracy. And I wish if I had time to address them all, but I'll focus on one of them only. That is democracy or good governance for general. I'll use the speaker, the microphone, in order to avoid some voice troubles here. I hope this would be. Yes. I wonder if I can share the part that I prepared, or it's not available for me to do that yet. Malia?
Yes, doctor. Okay.
Can I share the PowerPoint? Yes, now I can see. I can share.
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Yes. Well, as was said in the introduction, I'll focus on the roles of foreign powers on the democratization of Middle Eastern countries, in particular the Arab countries that witnessed uprisings known as the Arab Spring, beginning in 2011 and lasting until very recently with demonstrations in Sudan, Algeria, and other places. I'll take the example of the United States as a major power and Egypt as an Arab Spring country to see to what extent are major powers influential, or impactful on the process of democratization in Arab countries after the spring break, the Arab Spring. I'm unable to click to change.
Doctor, I'm sorry, can the screen be enlarged?
Excuse me?
Make it screen. Make a big. Show screen full.
I see. This one, like this.
Thank you, doctor.
Yes. Thank you very much. Yes, I would start with the pessimism that prevailed in many American journals and newspapers after the Arab Spring. Some American journals considered this Arab Spring as they called it, American fool in the region, and that idea was very much prevailing in 2011 in particular, because it was said that the rise of democracy in the Arab region was the beginning of the demise of American influence in the region. That's why some journalists called it an American fool. Others called this the beginning of more risks for the United States in the region, because the United States did not prepare itself for dealing with democratic forces. It used to deal more with the autocrats and dictators, but for the first time it will have to deal with popular demands and pressures in the Middle East. So some consider this a new risk, and that risk would overshadow the opportunities that the United States might benefit from from the Arab Spring. Another writer considered that the U.S. position in the region has been already weakened due to this rise. However, I call this pessimism premature. I mean, most writers did not consider an important factor here. That is the foreign policy of the states, the Arab states that experienced uprisings and revolutions, continue to be, to some extent, the same, despite new actors. In other words, there were new actors, that's true, but this change did not reflect a new identity of the regime or new identity of the state itself. So it was only about changing the actors, changing the players, those who are playing the foreign policy game, but not the game itself, not the rules of the game, not even the identity of the foreign policy of those countries. That's why the United States was able to maintain good relations with the new actors. And not only that, it was able to prevent any serious damage to be inflicted on its major interests in the region. I call it a U.S. attempt to induce the new players to play the old game. So we have new actors, but playing the old game. And nothing is clearer than the example of American-Egyptian relations during that time to give us a better overview of this. For the United States, Egypt is a strategic partner for sure. Egypt is very important to the United States because it's a key in protecting two outstanding U.S. interests in the Middle East. The first interest in the Middle East is about maintaining uninterrupted flow of oil from the region to American and world markets. The second most important interest for the United States in the region is to maintain the regional imbalance of power. I call it imbalance because the United States always tries to keep Israel more powerful than the Arab states surrounding it. So this imbalance is an interest for the United States. Egypt is a key for the United States to achieve these goals. First, Egypt controls the Suez Canal, through which a huge percentage of oil goes through. So it's important to secure the Suez Canal, and Egypt is taking care of this. Egypt is also the most powerful country in the Arab camp of peace with Israel. And as you know, it started relations with Israel before any other Arab state started relations with Israel, officially speaking, at least. Yeah. So Egypt was important and is important to the United States. Now, before the uprising, the United States was comfortable dealing with the Egyptian regime at that time, represented by President Mubarak, despite his dictator rule of the country. That was not a major concern to the United States. However, after the uprising and the sudden change in the political leadership in the country, the United States had to adapt. And the United States was not prepared for this change, by the way. I can give you an example of some of the statements made by US officials, including Hillary Clinton, who was at that time the Secretary of State, who expressed her confidence in the stability of the Mubarak regime and the necessity of him to to be in power and to supervise the transition. And that was the same meaning delivered by other U.S. officials, including the U.S. Special Envoy to the region and others. But this position was hardly maintainable. I mean, the United States had to change its position, especially after more than a week of demonstrations and bloody reactions against the demonstrators by the police at that time. At that time, the American President Barack Obama changed his position and broke his silence and sided openly with the demonstrators, asking President Mubarak to step down. At that time, a new actor emerged. That is the Supreme Council of Armed Forces. The Supreme Council of Armed Forces was a professional military council, not involved in politics. It was not political by any means, and it was never like highly profiled in the media. The last time that it was announced to have met was during the 1973 war between Egypt and Israel. So it was a kind of surprise for the Egyptians to have this council intervene in politics. However, that was a welcome intervention because the Supreme Council of Armed Forces announced the support of the people's will. That was more than 2 weeks after the beginning of the demonstrations, and one day before Mubarak had to resign. In fact, Mubarak had to resign due to this intervention of the Supreme Council of Armed Forces. That was the beginning of the end of this era. The council announced a new roadmap towards democratization, starting with a new constitution. First of all, there was a constitutional declaration and a promise to transfer power to civilians in 6 months, ending in November, actually ending in September 2001. And there were many promises of a smooth transition towards democracy. This transitional period, however, was prolonged because the Supreme Council was not, in fact, willing to give up power at that time. And it was actually forced to give up power in 2012 and to transfer the executive power of the government to an elected civilian president in June 2012. America was not away from these developments. Actually, as I mentioned, it was unprepared for this change. Then it started to side with the revolutionaries. And it was the United States, the US administration that suggested or encouraged or convinced the Supreme Council of Armed Forces to step in and force Mubarak to step down. So this transition was welcomed not only by the Egyptian masses, but also by the US officials for several reasons, including that the head of the council was the defense ministry and the defense minister at that time, and he was very close to the United States and very close to Mubarak. So this was a sign that business will be run as usual with the United States. Also because the United States had and still has strong relations with the Egyptian army since the signing of the peace treaty between the United States, Egypt, and Israel. The United States was not willing to antagonize the council. To the opposite, it appeased the council on several occasions because it considered the the Supreme Council as the last guarantor of critical U.S. interests. So it just ignored some of the key or critical violations committed by the Council. Even when the Council was reluctant to fulfill its promise to respect human rights and to democratize, the U.S. only reacted in a very benign way, in a gentle way, in a verbal way, asking the Council to fulfill its promises and to respect human rights. And there were two incidents, one in November and one in December, when the Council crashed the demonstrators, killing tens of them, injuring hundreds of them, and I mean, many other violations of human rights that were denounced verbally by the U.S. administration, but nothing else. Nothing else means that the U.S. continued to appease the Council. On the other hand, the Council served as a protector of U.S. interests in Egypt and the region. For example, some of the new bold initiatives in foreign policy made by the new government, which was supported by the revolutionaries, such as to reach out to the Palestinian groups, to reach out to Iran and others, that didn't please the United States, and the Council just failed all these foreign policy initiatives. I mean, it didn't let them thrive. The Council also changed its position on foreign funding of civil societies. In the beginning, it was against this foreign funding of civil societies. That was a sign of rejecting foreign intervention in Egyptian affairs. However, later on, it changed its position and accepted this foreign funding of civil societies. And that was a sign for many revolutionaries that the Council surrendered to American pressures. It was a bad sign for them, and that the Council exploited the deepening anti-Americanism among Egyptians at that time. About 70% of the Egyptians did not like the United States at that time, and wanted even to stop receiving aid from the United States. The service made by the Council to the U.S. interests also included its maintaining Egypt's relation with Israel, because after the uprising, the treaty between Israel and Egypt was at risk. Many Egyptian revolutionaries did not like that treaty, and even the prime minister of the interim government said that the treaty is not sacred and it's up for negotiation. And many Egyptians proposed to revise, if not abolish, this treaty altogether. And this tension reached a peak when the Egyptian demonstrators besieged the Israeli embassy in Cairo, demanding the Supreme Council to take revenge against Israel because Israeli soldiers shot down Egyptian soldiers on the border. The American officials, including President Obama and others, intervened and spoke to the leaders of the council, and that led to easing out this tension. So the council responded to American demands or requests to ease this tension. To conclude, I would say that the Americans consider themselves patient with Egypt at that time. And according to an American official, the U.S. treated the Supreme Council with a strategic patience in order not to let any differences or disagreement during the transitional period to impact the relations between Egypt and the United States on the long run. However, for many Egyptians, the U.S. intervention in their affairs was too much, and they dreamed of a more independent foreign policy. They dreamed of a smaller role for the U.S. in Egypt, and they just wanted to change or to turn the page of Mubarak altogether, because they considered the U.S. as supporting Mubarak up to the last minute, and that was true. The U.S. for many Egyptians was over-identified with an unpopular dictator. And for the first time in several decades, the U.S. found itself obliged to try to convince the Egyptians of the merits of the alliance between Egypt and the United States. However, it failed to convince the Egyptians that it solved the conflict between the U.S. ideals of democracy and good governance on one hand, and its material interests on the other hand, because it always prioritized its material interests over democratization. My conclusion ends with a call for foreign powers, including the United States, to try to support stability through democratization and not to ignore democratization and good governance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed Ali. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
We can hear you. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
That I get something important to see the Egypt.
Yeah, go ahead, May. We can hear.
Yep. Okay. Egypt is important for Middle East. I get something that is the key state in assisting both goals that control the Suez Canal and the most powerful state in Arab camp of peace with Israel. And
the voice is not clear now.
Can you? Hello?
Yes, now I can hear. Yes.
Okay. We get something important for to see Egypt transitions, that Egypt important for Middle East because of it's more for Israel, Palestinian Israel, and also there is this canal, and I think that America disappointed with the result of transition. Is that correct, Doctor?
Again, what's about the transition again?
America disappointed with the result of transitions.
Yes, it disappointed many Egyptians because it didn't support democratization. Yes. At that time.
Okay. Well,
and Egypt is only one example. Actually, as I said in the beginning, I wish if I had time to discuss other examples, because I also wrote about the French intervention in Tunisian affairs, and how France supported the dictator at that time, Zain al-Abidin bin Ali, and it failed the Democrats in Tunisia. So there are several examples. The US and Egypt is just only one example.
Okay. Thank you very much for interesting presentation, Doctor. Give a round of applause to Dr. Ahmed Ali. If you, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to ask something, please chat. You can chat right in a column setting. And we move to third speakers and the last speakers. Please welcome to Dr. Khairudin Aljunaid from National University, Singapore. Hello, Doctor.
Hello.
Hello, Doctor. Before we continue, I have questioned why are many Islamic countries poor and always in conflict? Please, you want to talk about the 5 Muslim minds toward a sustainable future for Islam, right?
Yes, okay. Let me share my slide.
Okay. Time is yours,
Okay.
Doctor.
Okay, can you see the slide? Yes, okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. First and foremost, I would like to thank the organizer and especially my very good friend, Dr. Yuan Machmudi for inviting me for this very
thank you, Doctor.
important conference. And congratulations, Professor, for your book. I hope to read it as well. And I think this is a major contribution to the field of not only Middle Eastern studies, but also the study of the Muslim world in general. What I'm going to share about today is actually very much related to Professor Yuan's book, which is to look at the current state of the Muslim world in general, and not only the Arab world, in our attempt to understand what is actually happening and what can we do to construct a better future for the region. Are you hearing some kind of echo as I speak? No, eh? Is it clear?
Yeah, very clear.
Is it clear?
Enough. Yes.
Yeah, there's no echo. Okay, I'm listening some. I'm hearing some echo. Okay, never mind. So what I'm going to share about today is basically the crisis that we are facing right now as Muslims all over the world. And this crisis is not something that we should dwell in for too long, because whenever we see problems, we encounter more problems, and then we get caught into the web of so many problems. What we need to do now is to shift our attention from not only looking at problems in the Muslim world, but also think about ways where we can come out of these problems. And I'm trying to make the argument today that we can come out from many of the crises that is faced by Muslims all over the world by changing our minds. So I'm going to begin by talking about the state of the Muslim world right now. And again, there's no time to talk about the Muslim world as a whole. I'm going to talk about selected aspects of the Muslim world. And then I'm going to move on and talk about the kind of minds that we require in our time to change what is happening in the Muslim world for us to sustain our future. And then we're going to have some question and answers if we have time. So I'm going to begin first with the state of the Muslim world. And I think that Professor Yuan just now has already presented to us some of the realities of the Muslim world. One issue that we have among Muslims today, and I encounter this everywhere I go, is that we are not willing to admit some of the failures that we have committed in the past and at present. And because of that, we find it very difficult to change our realities. Now, if you look at all the statistics that are presented to us, even by Muslim scholars, the reality is that Muslims all over the world are faced with poverty. And we need not go too far. Just travel around the region. And here I want to talk about Indonesia, because I've been invited to be a visiting professor in a few universities, University of Diponegoro, University of Muhammadiyah, Yogyakarta. And whenever I spend my time there, poverty is the thing that strikes me most in Indonesia. As we say in Malay, orang yang paling termiskin di dalam dunia Islam di Indonesia adalah orang-orang Islam itu sendiri. The Muslims are sadly the poorest people in their own country. And this is a situation that you see worldwide. Estimates suggest that roughly 35% of the 2 billion people facing poverty worldwide are in Muslim majority countries. Muslims who are minorities are actually better off than Muslims who are majorities. And again, Professor Yuan has talked about this. When we look at the Global Peace Index, we only find one Muslim country there, which is Malaysia, where I'm in. Singapore is seen as the 7th most peaceful country in the world, and Iceland being the highest. If you are hoping to migrate, New Zealand is also a good choice to choose from. And then again, a lot of studies have been done about violence, and it is found that the Muslim world, and just now Professor Ahmed was talking about Egypt, the Muslim world, the Muslim majority countries are actually the most violent countries that you can find in the globe today. Of course, violence is not unique to Muslims. It is a human problem. But the reality is that everyday violence is more prevalent in Muslim countries than in other parts of the world. More statistics, we always say that, oh yeah, Muslim countries may be very poor, Muslim countries may be underdeveloped, but we value our own life. This is not true. A recent survey of suicides all over the world found that one majority Muslim country, which is Kazakhstan, has the highest suicide rate in the world, followed by Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Azerbaijan, and others. So many Central Asian countries that are Muslim countries are among the countries with the highest suicide rates. I do not know the statistics in Indonesia, but partly because of the COVID, the pandemic, suicides are on the rise in the Muslim world. Now, all of this, we can go on and on with all of these problems in the Muslim world. Like I said just now in the very beginning, we want to find a way out of all of these issues that we are faced with. Of course, there is no magic pill or magic pills that can solve all of our problems. What I am trying to argue here is that to solve many of the issues that we face in the Muslim world today for a sustainable future, we need first to change our minds. And here, I take these ideas from a very famous Harvard educationist, a professor of psychology, whose name is Howard Gardner. I would fully encourage everyone here listening in to read his book, 5 Minds for the Future. He talks about why we need to move beyond analyzing to offering solutions. And solutions to human problems, according to him, in this book is by changing the minds of the people for a better future for humanity. So I'm going to use these 5 minds that he talked about. It's an amazing book that we all read. And I want to talk about the kind of minds that Muslims actually need right now. So the first mind that we need to imbibe in the Muslim world today is what I call as a law-abiding mind. Whether we want to accept it or not, Muslims are probably the people who are not able to follow their own laws. We talk about the Sharia, we talk about hudud, we talk about so many kind of laws. The reality is that Muslim countries are generally lawless countries. And we can name Egypt, Sudan, whatever country that you can think all over the world, that are Muslim majority, law is the last thing that Muslims would hold on to. And how do you know that Muslims don't abide to law? Muslim countries generally are very poorly managed, right? Because of lawlessness, corruption is something that is big in Muslim countries. So we need to start talking about the importance of law in the Muslim mind. And here, when I talk about law, I'm not only talking about hukum, I'm also talking about the maqasid. Why we need to look beyond only the haram and halal to look at why certain things are important for it to be halal or haram. And here we're talking about the maqasid. We're basically talking about the 5 principles of the maqasid, the preservation of the mind, the preservation of human life, the preservation of lineage, and so forth and so forth. Of course, scholars are debating right now, and Jasir Auda is probably one of the leaders in this discussion, as well as Professor Hashim Kamali and many others, that we need to now help Muslims, train Muslims, educate Muslims to think in a legal way, not in a legalistic way. A legal way means that in our mind, we know the importance of order, we know the importance of laws, and we abide these laws. So that's the first. The second is we need to imbibe what I call as the conservationist mind. The conservationist mind basically is mind that preserves things, a mind that does not destroy. And we see now conflict in the Muslim world, wars between Muslims, because Muslims do not understand the meaning of preserving preserving not only the lives of people, but also the environment. So environmental degradation is very high in the Muslim world because we have lost this whole idea, the meaning of being the Khalifatullah, Khalifatul Fir'aun. And because of this, we do not understand why being an environmentally friendly Muslim is very, very important. Again, I like to cite Indonesia as a case in point that, you know, you step out onto the streets, you see a lot of rubbish everywhere. So I'm sorry, Indonesians, I have to say this, but this is the reality. Sangat kotor di mana-mana saja, kecuali di dalam hotel. Only when you go to hotels, it is clean. When you go to people's houses, it is clean. When you go to cafes, it is clean. But you walk down the streets, you see rubbish everywhere. But those people who have studied overseas, if you go to Holland, for example, the Netherlands, if you have been to Sweden, the streets are very, very clean. So it's because of the loss of this conservationist mind. We do not conserve what is around us. So that's the second. So the legal, law-abiding mind, the conservationist mind, and then thirdly, we need to imbibe humanitarian mind, a conscience, a heart for other human beings, which means, to go back to the maqasid again, this whole idea of feeling for another human being. If you go to anywhere in the Muslim world today and go to the Islamic universities, you see a lot of our ulama, a lot of our sheikhs teaching us the values of Islam. Why Islam is a powerful religion, why it is a superior deen. But when you walk out of many of these Islamic universities, you find poor people everywhere. Why is this happening? Why is it that the university, the Islamic university, is talking about the importance of Islam, the importance of the human being, the importance of being humanitarian, but Muslims are not humanitarian towards their own kind. So to have the humanitarian mind is to engage in deeds that would help the human beings flourish. And this is not only about helping Muslims, but also helping non-Muslims as well. One problem that we have amongst Muslims, and many studies have shown this as well, is that we always think about our own kind, not realizing that we are just 1 out of 6 people all over the world. So the humanitarian mind is very important because even in the Quran, Allah emphasized on why killing people is almost like killing the whole of humankind, and that preserving the life of someone is like saving the humankind. So it's about being conscious that there are people around us, there are people who are in need, and that we need to help them first. We can talk about Islam, we can discuss about ideas, but at the end of the day, the real action, the minds must be oriented towards helping the people out there. And this is something that I feel that is sorely missing in our education, sorely missing in our university curriculum, such that we can talk about, we can philosophize about things for hours and hours, but our countries are full of people who are, in a sense, not concerned about humanity. So that's the third. The fourth is that we need to develop what I call as the ethical mind, the mind that thinks about doing things in an ethical way. Now, universities in Southeast Asia, and I'm sure in the Arab world as well, Professor Ahmed maybe can brief us on this, they are concerned about publishing in ISI and Scopus. Because they are so concerned about publishing so much and rising up the rankings, many scholars now cheat. They take their students' work, they do all sorts of tricks in order to get what they want. And this is not only limited to the scholarly world, this happens everywhere. Because of the loss of the adab and the akhlaq, people do things out of materialist concerns. They do things by any means necessary in order to achieve, most of the time, ignoble or wrongful ends. So the ethical mind is something that we need to train the future generation, and we need to write a lot about it. We need to talk about why ethics, akhlaq, character building is so important in the development of a Muslim, in the development of the Muslim world, because we can have all these wonderful books about Islam, but at the end of the day, if we don't have people who are walking embodiment of the akhlaq of Islam, the Muslim world in the end will not progress. And this is why, as I said just now, not only because of the lack of a legal mind or a law-abiding mind that has made Muslims so corrupt today, that corruption is so endemic and high in the Muslim world, it is because we lack the ethics. Someone who is ethical will know that corruption is wrong. But if his mind does not see that corruption is wrong, even if there is a law, he will break the law. So the ethical mind is very, very important. The former president of Bosnia once said, all power in the world starts out as moral firmness. Every defeat begins as moral failure. All that is desired to be accomplished must first be accomplished in the souls of men. Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqaumin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. Bi anfusihim is in us, and in us, how do we develop what is in us? We develop our adab, we develop our akhlaq, we develop our ethics. So that's the fourth. And then last, and this is something that I discussed in my recent book, Haqqa and Islam, where I talk about a local scholar, Hamka. He talks about how we need now to develop what he calls as a reforming mind, a mind that is engaged in constant islah, constant tajdeed, constant change, to not rest, to always see that there are problems in our society and to seek solutions to these problems. The reforming mind, according to Hamka, is a mind that is always sensitive about what is wrong in society and to correct what is wrong and bring in what is good. So it is an active mind that sees that change is very, very important, that do not want to rest with the status quo, that want things to be better for not only Muslims, but also for humanity. And one of the things that we need to do to develop this reformist mind is to think about issues that are current in our time. And we know that the big issue right now is the issue of health and well-being. We need to reform how Muslims look at health and well-being. And this stems from our idea of science. Until today, Muslims are thinking about science in a very, very mystic and out of the world way. We still believe in a lot of superstition and things like that. And people like Osman Bakar, for example, who did research on the history and philosophy of Islamic science, showed that Muslims were very, very scientific. Muslims are always very concerned about science, especially medical science, to make life better for the Muslim civilization, for other civilizations. So to be having the reforming mind is to engage in issues that are pertinent in our time. And if there's one issue that is more central in our time right now that we need to look at, especially in the Muslim world, is the issue of medicine, health, and well-being. So a lot of research that we need to do right now on this call, but with the reforming mind, then we can see why all of these issues have to be thought about, has to be written about, and has to be changed. So these are the 5 minds that I want to emphasize here. And I'm saying that with these 5 minds, the law-abiding mind, the ethical mind, the reforming mind, and so forth, we can bring about new ways of thinking about Islam. We can bring about new ways of thinking about the Muslim world. And it is not only about thinking about these issues, but to construct concrete steps towards making the Middle East, the Muslim world, everywhere in the Islamic civilization, a better place for us to live and an exemplar for the other civilizations out there. So I would like to just end here. I thank the organizers very, very much for including me in this very wonderful book launch. I hope that we can have a nice discussion over some of these ideas that I present. Some of the books that I have presented here are pertinent books that I hope that everyone here will look at. Let us now engage in the changing of the Muslim minds to develop these 5 minds for a sustainable future for the Muslim world. Aqulu qawli hadha wa astaghfirullahal azim li wa lakum. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Wow, it's very inspiring Dr. Khairudin Aljunaid. Give a round of applause to Dr. Aljunaid for the presentations. Can you hear me? Wow, it looked like a reflection for us as the majority Muslim country in the world, 87% Muslim in Indonesia. And you mentioned that look like, oh yeah, we have a lot of missing in education, philosophy, curriculum, and ethics. Adab is important for us. Well, thank you very much for 3 speakers today who give insight for us. And we open right now we open discussions to all participants, but I want to ask one participant to ask directly. Please raise your hands as there's one to talk directly to the speakers. Okay, I have one, Mr. Abdi Mulia from Yogyakarta. Would you ask directly speak about your questions? Hello? Okay, one question from Mr. Abdi Mulia. We next to Farid Mubarak. Farid Mubarak, please open your mic, ask directly to Dr. Ahmed. We choose one representative for the questions. Okay, Farid? Okay, Farid, please. Your question, please.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Mulia, for your opportunity. My question to Dr. Ahmed: how do you see the power shift there is as Turkey getting more involved in the Middle East, which often clash with other regional powers like Egypt?
Sorry, could you repeat it again, please?
Okay. How do you see the regional power shift as Turkey getting more involved in the Middle East, which often clash with other regional powers like Egypt and Iran? How U.S. positioning itself in front of its major allies contestation, like Turkey, NATO, and which often clash with Egypt and Saudi in the region.
Okay, thank you. Hello, Dr. Ahmed, can you?
Should I answer question by question, or should I get more than one question and at the end I answer, or maybe we can make rounds, maybe 3 questions per time?
No, it's just one question and then answer one by one.
Because I noticed that in the chat I received about 10 questions. So if I can mix some of the questions raised in the chat as well as the questions raised directly by the speakers, that would be more helpful. This question, for example, is similar to a question raised in the chat about the involvement in Turkey in the region and the regional alliances. And this is, for me, this is new to the region. The shifting alliances in the region has been a practice for so long. The shifting alliances in general follow that type of alliances with major powers. So, for example, when Egypt was an ally to the Soviet Union and Saudi Arabia was an ally to the United States during the Cold War, they were against each other. But then when Egypt shifted alliance on the global level and became an ally to the United States, at that time, it became an ally to the Saudi Arabia. What's taking place now is relatively different in the sense that the withdrawal of U.S. from the region allowed some regional powers such as Turkey, Iran, and to a lesser extent Ethiopia, because it doesn't belong to the region technically speaking. Now the regional powers has more say in the region because the U.S. is not willing to intervene and to protect its historical allies. So that was the case more during the time of the Trump administration. Whether that will continue under Biden, this is a question. However, it's possible because many analysts say that America has overstretched its power. So even if it's willing again to come back to the region, it might not be able to. So willingness is not everything. Its ability is questioned right now, and that vacuum will be filled. I mean, we cannot live in vacuum. That vacuum will be filled, if not by other major powers such as Russia and increasingly China. It will be by regional power such as Turkey and Iran. So I expect more of this competition in the next few years.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Is that clear enough, Farid? Is that clear enough? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Doctor. The next question, I would like to invite with the raise hand. Raise hand.
I think Mr. Abdi Mulya Lubis is already
Mr. Abdi Mulya Lubis.
Thank you.
Yes. Mr. Abdi Mulya Lubis.
Ya, halo.
Ya.
Ya, saya Abdi dari Jogja. Halo, kedengaran suara ya?
Yes,
ya berita mengenai UAE dan Arab, negara-negara Arab dan yang ada di Timur Tengah yang sudah menjalin kerjasama dan komunikasi terbuka dengan Israel kan. Bagaimana langkah Indonesia untuk memulai hal tersebut supaya bisa terjalin kerjasama dan perdamaian untuk hal normalisasi dan hubungan yang terbuka dengan Israel. Saya rasa seperti itu, Pak. Terima kasih.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
How to Pak Yon maybe this? How Indonesia can normalize relations with Israel, Pak Yon? Because UAE, Uni Emirat Arab, Sudan, Bahrain, Morocco, and other Arab countries have normalized relation with Israel. What do you think about this? Pak Yon Machmudi.
Yeah, sorry, Mike. Could you repeat again? Because I have problem with the connection.
Okay. From Mr. Abdi Mulya from Yogyakarta asked about how Indonesia can normalize relation with Israel because Uni Emirat Arab, Sudan, Bahrain, Morocco, and other Arab countries have normalized for relation with Israel. What do you think about this? And can Indonesia take a place for these relations?
Yes, okay. Thank you, May. According to my opinion, the normalization between the Israel with the other Arab countries based on the condition that those countries make a good relation with the Israel based on their national interest. So it is more concern about their interest between the Arab country and Israel and left the interest of the Palestinian. And how about Indonesia? Is it possible to have normalization with the Israel? Of course, there is a possibility to have normalization, but we have to see the condition, precondition to open the normalizations. For instance, Indonesia still believe that the colonialism should be lifted, so it should become the consideration. So in order to benefit both let's say, win-win solution between the Israel and the Palestinian to see the more, peace in the future. So we have to put in very just condition. For instance, we know that there are some countries who recognize only Palestinians. There are also some countries who only recognize Israeli state. Israel state does not recognize the Palestinian state, and also the Palestinian state does not recognize the Israel. So it is, I think, the issue. So in order to have the coexistence, I think it's very important. First, the Israel should recognize the Palestinian state. The Palestinian state also should recognize the Israeli state. And the second, we have also big powers still does not recognize the Palestinian state and only recognize the Israel. For instance, US, France, Britain, Japan still only recognize Israel. So we also have some other countries, for instance, Indonesia, Malaysia, only recognize Palestinian. So we have to make it just. So if US can recognize, or British can recognize, France recognize the state of Palestinian, in return, Indonesia also could recognize both countries, but in exchange, Israel also recognize Palestinian state, and Palestinians also recognize the Israel. So it will be very just to see what happening in the future. So Indonesia, I think, cannot recognize Israel before Israel give, independence to Palestinian. So both countries can coexist. So this is also, I think, possibility to have a big power to see the interest of Palestinian. Otherwise, there is no country who, hold the position of the Palestinian. Yeah, I think this is my answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Ion. And I think this is clear enough for participants about Indonesia. And after this, I think that we have to move to chat. I give two speakers to talk directly. Please, Mr. Hamza Lubis from Lebanon to talk directly to 1 to 3 speakers. Hello, Mr. Lubis.
Hello.
Okay, Mr. Lubis, yes, please. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, moderator, for giving me these opportunities. Actually, I want to ask the question for all of our speakers, but I will point this question to Professor Khairudin. As like we know, countries with a majority of Muslim populations, such as Indonesia, Turkey, Malaysia, and Brunei, and others have a very big opportunity to work together and even collaborate in various fields, especially the military sector with countries in the Middle East because of their inner closeness and religion. But until now, this potential has become very small and very difficult to realize. According to you, Prof. Khairudin, what is the main reason why this is difficult to realize? Thank you.
Yeah, very, very good question. Thank you so much. There are many complex issues within the Muslim world that I think needs to be factored in when we talk about why Muslim countries are not able to contribute now more than ever before. And I think, as Professor Ahmed Salem mentioned just now, instability, especially in many parts of the Muslim world, is the first factor. And especially when we look at the Middle East, whether we want to recognize it or not, only the UAE countries and some of the North African countries are quite stable in the Middle East now. When we look to other parts of the world, Central Asian Muslim majority countries. Most of them are suffering from really bad financial deficits. Corruption is still very high in many Central Asian countries. The same is in Africa. Of course, Kenya is one of the stable African countries, followed by probably Tunisia right now, which is also not doing pretty well. In Southeast Asia, Malaysia is undergoing a very bad political transition right now. The COVID has made things even worse. Indonesia, and I think you all know right now the state of Indonesia. The same is in other parts of Southeast Asia. What we see is basically and the inability of the leaders in many of these countries to take the initiative to change not only their own conditions, but to act as proactive powers in the world. And you see this in many of the deliberations in the United Nations. Muslim countries are actually not decisive actors in discussions over world issues. The conflict in Yemen, for example, is a clear example of why Muslim countries cannot do anything really with what's happening to another Muslim country. So there is political problem, leadership problem. But to go back to what I said just now, the crisis is really here, right here in the mind. And I think that crisis stems from the problems that are deep-seated in our educational system. From Islamic universities that are focusing mostly on learning text and less context, to mainstream institutions all over the Muslim world that are concerned mostly with developmentalist issues that are defined by the West, and also in the lower level schools that you see all over the Muslim world. So there is need to, I think, totally revamp how we educate our young, and then these changes can then cascade or multiply or amplify as we move to the higher levels in the Muslim world. So it's a very complex thing, but at the end of the day, the issue is an intellectual one. Now, the question that we should ask is, which Muslim intellectual in this world that we live in today are talking about resolving the crisis in the mind of the Muslims? We used to have that in the 1970s. Many Muslim thinkers were debating about the Islamization of knowledge, which I think has run its course, and we should just move on from this Islamization of knowledge discourse. We need a new wave of Muslim scholars to not only analyze issues that we are faced with, but to offer really concrete solutions for us to get out of this intellectual stagnancy and stasis that we have in. And I think today we have a good audience. These people who are attending today, to me, are the people that can move us to the next direction. And I think what we need to do, especially scholars of my generation, I'm not too old, I'm only in my mid-40s, we need to write more. Professor Ahmed Salem is also not very old, he looks very young in fact. Professor John Machmudi.
I mean, mid-40s as you are.
Mid-40s is the age, life just started. We need to write more and we need to engage with the global intellectual world. So this is our problem as Muslims. We talk to each other a lot, but we don't talk to the larger world. And that's why I've been encouraging friends in Southeast Asia, and I hope soon we'll have a connection in the Arab world with Professor Ahmed Salem, to go out, get your stuff published in big university press, in big journals, in big policy reports. Then you can influence the mind of the people in countries that are very powerful. Then you can influence the Muslim mind. Take note, you cannot change the mind of Muslims merely by engaging the Muslims. If you want to change the minds of the Muslims, you go and engage the non-Muslims. Because 1 out of 6 in the world are non-Muslims. If the 6 or 5 in the world change, Muslims will change. And that was how our Prophet Muhammad Rasulullah SAW did actually. He didn't change Muslims first. He changed the non-Muslims. And then he reformed the Muslims from within as he changed more non-Muslims. So we need to change the minds, and all of these issues that you brought up just now, Hamza, we can resolve it step by step, inshallah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Khairudin. We need global intellectual together to open our mind to transfer. Is that correct, sir?
Much. And we also, I forgot to say, did not be over-reliant on the traditional ulama. We need to bring together the ulama al-nusus and the ulama al-waqi', have a discussion, have an engagement to solve our problems together. And this is something that is necessary now. Right now, I think that conversation is not intensive enough, and we need to have more.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Wow, how many questions to me right now? And we move to YouTube channel. There is M. Wafi asked about how is Indonesia doing in democratization process in the Middle East, and what are Indonesian foreign interests if takes part in the political dynamics of the Middle East. Pak Yon Mahmudi, maybe you can answer the questions. How is Indonesia doing in democratization process in the Middle East?
Yeah, of course, we as the part of the Muslim country, and we consider as the biggest Muslim country in the world, should empower our role in the Middle East. And we understood that before we do not have kind of projection, to have the close relationship with the Middle East, because our relationship with the Middle East before based on the security issues at the time. So we do not take the advantage of the economy.
Hello, Pak Yon? Hello? It's lost? I think we lost connections with Pak Yon. Okay. We move. We cancel first, and we move to another questions from chat to Dr. Ahmed Salem. Oh, Pak Yon has come. Okay, we wait first. Hello, Pak Yon.
Okay, then. Can you hear my voice?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, about the role of Indonesia in the Middle East, we have to expand the role, and we have also to expand the relationship, not only with the Muslim country, but also, as I agree with Dr. Khairudin, that we have to have, to talk with the other major countries. Is it impossible? For instance, the role of Indonesia in Afghanistan, we have tried to engage to put together two conflicting parties between the Taliban and the ruling country. Then the important thing is how both countries consider us as the mediator, as the just mediator, rather than the party who support other party. So this is also our task as the Muslim in Indonesia, the government of Indonesia to show their position in the Middle East. Of course, and what we want to see is the Middle East and the Muslim country become more prosperous, have a peaceful country, and also develop the democracy in a good way. So this is what we can do in general, and in terms of the democratization issue, the issue of, for instance, we have a good example about the united in diversity. How to see our diversity is then we can not only making homogenization, but to recognize the diversity, heterogeneity of the Muslim country, then we can, I think, become strong and more involved, in peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Machmudi. And wow, I think I can give two questions for the discussions. And we move to chat, Dr. Ahmed Salem. Hello, Doctor. There's a question for you. In the context of Egypt, from Soheh University, Universitas Negeri Semarang. Hello, Dr. Ahmed. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, yes.
Okay. The question is, the role of civil society organizations such as NGO in promoting democracy after Arab Spring in Egypt. What do you think about this? How does civil society such as NGO bargaining position or cooperation with government and military? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. This is an interesting question because the role of civil societies was flourishing after the uprising, at least in Egypt, because there was an atmosphere of opening in Egypt, and civil societies tried to make a difference, pushing for new ideas, pushing for popular participation in education, in healthcare, in social service, and everything, and of course, including in politics. However, this role, of course, deteriorated with the deterioration of democracy in Egypt. We have to realize that. And also, this role was, to some extent, restricted due to limited funds. And the issue of foreign funding of civil societies was a serious issue in Egypt at that time. While some civil societies were serious about using this fund for the benefit of the people, the Supreme Council and some old guards considered this an attempt of foreign intervention in Egyptian affairs, and they tried to stop foreign funding of civil societies, which led to attention. Actually, it was a crisis between the U.S. and Egypt, because it was the U.S. that was the most funding country to some of the civil societies in Egypt. As I said, this flourished for some time, but then it deteriorated due to the deterioration of the whole democratic experience in Egypt.
Hello, Dr.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope I answered the question.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed. And I have one chance opportunity to whom want to tell directly to all speakers. I think there is a professor, I don't know who, the professor who want to talk, who want to ask to speaker. Is there? Okay, we move to another questions from Zaki Al from Middle Eastern program. We have remarkable religious teachings such as zakat, infak, sodako. To what extent do you think does three develop the living condition or prosperity of Muslim society? Why it seems the most Muslim society life under poverty rate despite having such concept in religious teaching? I think it's for Dr. Khairudin. Please, Dr. Khairudin, for your questions.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. Yeah, we have zakat, infak, sadaqah as part and parcel of our faith. And alhamdulillah, I mean, the institution of zakah, for example, have benefit so much of the Islamic civilization for over a millennium. But we do still have problems of poverty in the Muslim world. And the reason has little to do with the institution of zakat, infak, sadaqah. The issue has to do with political mismanagement and irresponsibility on the part of the Muslim bureaucracies all over the Muslim world that has led to the dysfunctional implementation of the institution of zakah and even waqaf. So in Turkey, for example, right now, good steps are now visible. A lot of Turkish universities now are waqaf universities. That's a good development, alhamdulillah. Management of these universities are showing very positive signs. And I hope that Turkey can be a good example in how management of the zakah, of waqaf can be used effectively to generate educational institutions. But the zakah, as Professor Yusuf Qardawi has discussed in his iconic book on zakat, is still not used enough to solve some of the problems of development in the Muslim world. So we need to rethink again, not only how these funds have been used, but why has it been used wrongly? And here again, it goes back to the people who are managing the zakah. Like I said just now, because their minds are unethical, they don't have an ethical mind, they don't have a law-abiding mind. Even something as religious as zakah is currently mismanaged. And the Indonesians know this better than me. Thousands and thousands, in fact millions of Indonesian Muslims contribute to zakat every single year. But the recipients of the zakat, which is the miskin, the fakir, everybody who are within the asnaf, they're not actually getting this money. So there's leakages happening at a macro level. These leakages at the macro level, to me, is related to how these people who are at the micro level of society are not actually seeing why these funds have to be disbursed properly and carefully. So remember, there is the ideal of Islam, which is the institutions of Islam, the pillars of Islam, and there is the reality of the Muslim world. These two now, you see a dissonance. They're not coming together. The root of this dissonance is the Muslim. The root of the problem with the Muslim is his mind. The root of the problem of the mind is the lack of education and the lack of proper education. If we solve this root, we can make the zakat institution a powerful institution. Now, to come to that stage, we need to frankly, openly, honestly, critically identify this problematic issue of the crisis of the Muslim mind, which affect the running of zakah, infaq, waqaf. In the Turkish case that I mentioned just now, and in some other Muslim countries, for a while, Malaysia was doing well. And then I could give another example in places like Oman, because people in these countries realize in their minds that if we can build effective institutions through this money, through this infaq, through this zakah, we can actually multiply the effects. So it is not that we are lacking of good examples. We have a lot of good examples. But the problem with our minds is that we don't show these good examples to the rest of the Muslim world. People don't know. And this is where more research needs to be done. More research needs to be done on the Turkish Waqaf universities. More research needs to be done on the effective practices of zakah, infaq, and waqaf in many Muslim countries. And then we show it to the rest of the world. What is clear is that in many countries where Muslims are minorities, I've lived in the US, I've lived in the UK, I've lived in Singapore as a minority, the zakah are very well managed. So what is really the problem with us Muslims? The problem is that there cannot be too many of us. It's when we are small that we do well. But when we are big, we become robbers. I don't think we need to be like this for too long. And here, I think I am optimistic about the future. And I think we can do well to look at good examples where Muslims are minorities. So this is my appeal to everyone here today. Study the Muslim minorities all over the world. Muslims in the West, Muslims in many African countries, Muslims in Southeast Asia that are minorities, Muslims in Russia, how they manage their institutions, and then how they use these funds, zakah, and then we bring it back to our country. This requires us to look at minorities differently, not to look at minorities as people who are insignificant in the Muslim world, but minorities who can be exemplars for the majority Muslim population.
Thank you very much, Dr. Khairudin. Thank you very much for the answer. Okay, we have one more before the end of discussions. This is for all speaker from Nadila Zanuarita, student in Arabic Literature, University of Indonesia. The question is the limit of Arab nationalism just limited to society as one nation, not country? Is it possible that the future Arab will become a country like the unity of Indonesian nationalism? It means that like pan-Arabism, maybe, is the question. What do you think, Doctor? From you, Dr. Khairudin. What do you think about Arab nationalism? It can be together before we conflict each other? What do you think about that?
I think Professor Ahmed is the best person to answer this question. And the reason is that he's from a country that is...
Professor Ahmed, please. You know better.
Maybe Professor Ahmed can take
Okay, Professor Ahmed, this is your specialization.
Thank you very much. And I think Dr. Khairudin is no less capable of answering this, but I can give you some insight from the region. Basically, this pan-nationalism or pan-Arab nationalism belongs to the era of old nationalism, like the ideal of integrating all Arab states into one has gone, and the time for this idea has gone. It's not only impractical, but it has more problems than solutions. I mean, it contributes to idealizing this notion of nationalism, and instead, actually, many are looking for expanding this notion of a nation. Some look at the Muslim world as the nation, I mean, as the Ummah, and this can be traced back to the time of Islamic revival and the Islamic movements that revived the thinking of Muslims as belonging to a Muslim Ummah. And of course, Dr. Khairudin Aljunaid mentioned the project of Islamization of knowledge, and Dr. Ismail Al-Farouqi and others who contributed to this idea, at least for academicians. Others look at nationalism in a very micro lens, looking for their own local nationalism, like Saudis, Egyptians, Sudanese, and so on. And of course, as you can imagine, this can go narrower and narrower forever. I mean, looking for regions in each country as being one community separated from other communities. So this is a matter of negotiation to which a larger group belong. It's no longer like in the 60s and maybe 50s that it is the Arab world and it is the Arab nation. Now there is a variety, a diversity of alternatives, and many Arabs are not settled on this question about which larger community they prefer to belong to if they can. I hope this answers the question.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. Thank you very much. And I would like to the best opportunity to Professor Andy Faisal to ask directly to all speakers. Professor Andy Faisal. Help, Professor.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to our webinar, Professor.
I'm so happy today to listen to three presentations of three scholars, renowned scholars, Professor Ahmed, Professor Khairudin, and then Machmudi. One big question I think needs to be addressed is about how can we unite things. We are now fighting each other. We don't even recognize Shiites, which is very Islamic in a way that they believe in God, they believe in angels and revelations, even hereafter, even Ihsan. But here, as we notice, the WhatsApp group is full of hatred against them. The same thing, for example, for Ahmadiyya and all in Islamic world. Now, this is, I think, really problematic. While in Surah Al-Imran 103, it is very clearly stated that we united. Now we are actually fighting. You look at the Arab Spring, for example. We are basically fighting to each other, and Yemen and Saudi, for example, now. So this is really problematic for the Muslim world. And what is your opinion about the Khalif model of government? Khalifah, yeah, Khalifah. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, I get the point. Even though the connection is up and down, Professor Andy, but thank you very much. Please, Pak Yon, can you answer the questions from Professor Andy? How together and not fight each other, I think.
Maybe from Khairudin, Prof. Khairudin, please, yeah.
From Dr. Khairudin.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try to answer the question in a politically correct way. First and foremost, we need to understand that until after the death of Rasulullah SAW, the Muslims were not united. If you read the Tarikh of Islam objectively, there was no such thing as everybody was united. Even during the time of Sayyidina Ali, Ali was at war with the wife of Rasulullah, which is Aisha. But does that mean that we cannot stand united? So this is the two things. One is to imagine that all of us can unite, be brothers, happy, and come together. The other one is to stand united and work together towards resolving the problems of the Muslim world. Now, I am of the opinion that to be united as an ummah, I don't think that is even possible. Muslim families are fighting one another. Until we can unite our families, we can unite the ummah. So it's not going to happen. But we can unite, stand united, when we talk about issues that do not divide us. We have been wasting time in this ummah talking about issues of hukum, talking about issues of sectarianism, talking about issues of Maulid, whether we should celebrate Maulid, whether we should raise our hands or whether we should wear pants. We are always talking about what we call in sociology as the macro politics of everyday life. This is our problem. What we need to do now is to move towards looking at macro problems. And that's why I said in the very beginning, problems of underdevelopment, problems of poverty, problems of political accountability, problems of social responsibility, issues of philanthropism, issue of being charitable, issue of intellectual degradation, environmental or climate change. When we talk about all of these issues, including soccer, when you talk about Manchester United and Liverpool, people seem to come together. We can actually come together. So just so sorry, I just want to publicize a little bit my book, which has already been translated into Indonesia. If I can share, can you see? In my book, Muslim Cosmopolitanism, Southeast Asian Islam in Comparative Perspektif, published by Edinburgh University Press, I actually talk about these issues. How if we shift our lenses to looking at our small problems and to look at how our asabiyah, to answer the earlier question, can be expanded beyond the national front to become a global and regional front, we can actually come together and resolve some of our intractable problems. So we need to relive this cosmopolitanism. And this cosmopolitanism, to me, is embedded in Islam. And it is in the Quran, in Surah Al-Hujurat, ayat number 13. Our scholars need to now bring back into the Quran. They are experts in this field and explain this whole idea of inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha wa ja'alnakum shu'uban wa qabaila lita'arafu. How this coming together of people can be realized, then I think we can talk about standing united. As it is, we are still fighting over small issues. We are still debating over very, to me, trivial problems that always involve first power, second control of resources, third ideological hegemony. We Muslims want to be hegemonic ideologically, and that's why we cannot put aside our problem.
Hello? Is connections lost? Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Khairudin and Professor Ande Faisal. I'm really sorry because we have limited time. This is our close discussions. We give round of applause to 3 speakers today. Wow, give insight for us. Give a round of applause. Amazing presentation that we get from Middle East Arab studies about the transitions post-Arab Spring. And then also from Dr. Khairudin give our insight that maybe that's like a reflections for us as a Muslim to transform from the bad to the lightning. And Pak Yon Machmudi, thank you very much for your perspective from Indonesia. Well, there is 1 minute for one speaker to another speaker to give your closing statement. From Pak Yon Machmudi. Please, Pak Yon.
Okay, thank you, May. And I would like also to thank to Dr. Ahmed, Salem, Dr. Khairudin, Aljunaid to participate in this very wonderful webinar. We can continue our cooperation in the future, and discussing Middle East Muslim world is very interesting, but then how we can give solution to the problem that already faced by the Muslim community or the Muslim country. So the key, I think, that we can underline is that how we can recognize the diversity among us, among the Muslim, among other countries, then we can cooperate in very strategic issues regarding the problems of the world, not only the Muslim world, but also the problem faced by the whole country. Then we can strengthen each other between dialogue between civilization, understanding each other, so we can, I think, cooperate and promote peace, prosperity, and democracy in the future. I think that's all. Thank you very much, Mai.
Ahmed Ali Salem, please give your closing statement.
Sure. Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank everyone who participated, whether giving a talk or asking a question. And I wish if I could answer all the questions that I received through the chat, maybe in another occasion, inshallah. But I want to end with a word about Muslim unity. I think before talking about unity, perhaps we should come to know each other more. And these webinars contribute to this. And I appreciate Dr. Yon's promise that there will be more of it. Yes, because we don't need to wait for the leaders, for the political leaders to take the initiative to unite our states. I mean, let's try to be less state-centric and focus about the people, about the ummah. And we are the ummah. And we need to unite in the sense that we need to know each other and to speak to each other, to think together collectively. And this is the beginning of it, I think. And inshallah, there will be more. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed Salem. I remember one word, that's wise word for me, that together we can do so much. Okay, we continue to the last speaker, Dr. Khairudin. Please, your closing statement.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. And I second what Professor Ahmad was saying just now. Let's continue our conversation and let's discuss more about Ummah at this level. And again, I would like to appeal to everybody here. We need to continue to think about macro issues in this Ummah. We need to engage on not only analyzing, but also resolving some of the day-to-day problems that Muslims are faced with. And I always believe that many of the solutions to the problems of our time are actually in our own traditions. We need to go back to the texts of the Muslim scholars of the past and also engage with the Muslim and other scholars of the present in order to bring the thinking about Islam and Muslim world forward, inshallah. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Well, we give a round of applause for three speakers today who kept our mind blowing for us. And thank you very much again for you all, the speaker from over the world, and also the participants who come in our webinar, and special for Director School of Strategic and Global Studies, University of Indonesia, Bapak Athor Subroto. Thank you very much for this beautiful international webinar. And I'm really happy. I'm sorry if there's a lot of mistake from me, and see you next time. I return back to MC. Please, MC. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed, Dr. Khairudin, and Payon.
Okay, Alhamdulillah, we have arrived at the end of the event. Many thanks to all the speakers, also for the moderator and all participants who have listened from beginning to the end. I represent the committee on this. Apologize for any wrong words or different things. In the end, let me thank you very much, and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Dr. Ahmed, Dr. Khairudin. Inshallah, we can see you again in the future. Keep in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you
very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, participants. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Terima kasih.
Thank you.
Terima kasih.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Terima kasih, Pak Athor.
Thank you, Komite.
Sama, Pak Yon. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum. Thank you, speaker. Dr. Salem sama Dr. Khairudin. Thank you.
Thanks.
See you next time. Bye. Assalamualaikum. Terima kasih, Pak Yon. Assalamualaikum.
Ya, sama-sama, Pak. Salam.
Satu nusa, satu bangsa, satu bahasa kita, tanah air pasti jaya untuk selama-lamanya. Indonesia pusaka, Indonesia tercinta, nusa bangsa dan bahasa kita bela bersama.
Because of the school that I speaker, because of the speaker in the public development of Indonesia,
satu bangsa, satu bahasa kita, tanah air pasti jaya untuk selama-lamanya. Indonesia pusaka, Indonesia tercinta, nusa bangsa